How y'all doing? I'm going to go ahead and get started on tomorrow's recipe tonight. We'll get started marinating things. We're going to do some, it's going to be some country style ribs. We're going to use a sweet chili sauce, some pineapple juice, a little bit of teriyaki to marinate those in. We're going to cook them all day tomorrow in a slow cooker. I'm going to try to do some cornbread, some buttermilk cornbread tomorrow, and some collard greens along with them. So what we got here is a pack of these country style ribs. These are on sale. I guess it's about 3 pounds of country style ribs, and all this really is a Boston butt cut up. And to make these little, they don't have the bone in them, they're boneless like ribs, so they just take the Boston butt, which is really a pork shoulder, and they slice up in little strips and make these ribs out of it. And I like to use this sweet kind of Asian type glaze on them. Gives them a really good taste. We're going to let them marinate overnight. So first we're going to get started on a marinade here. Alright, for the marinade, first off we're going to get started out. I've got some pineapple chunks here in their juice. Probably about a 16-ounce can. Got that going in there. And then I've got, this is what gives it the kick. This is the sweet chili sauce. I got this in my Asian grocery. But I'm sure you can find in the grocery store in the Asian section. Some really good stuff. Heck, I'd almost put all this sauce on there, except for it's so good for a dipping sauce. I'm going to just use about half the bottle to marinate in. Okay, let's see. A bit more. Alright, that's about half there. I mean, man, that stuff is really, really good. And then I've got me a little bit of teriyaki sauce. I'm going to add that to it. So that probably about 2 tablespoons teriyaki sauce, and just old Kikkoman teriyaki here. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to stir that up, and I'm going to get these pork ribs put in the slow cooker, and I'm going to pour that over. Okay, now what I've done, I've scooped some of those pineapples out of the bottom of that marinade, and I put them in the bottom of the slow cooker. What that's going to do is kind of keep the pork up off the bottom so much. Now taking these country style ribs, if you notice they have a fatty side, I'm going to lay them on the pineapple pieces with the fatty side up. And be sure, which I already went ahead and did, is wash these off before you put them in here, because what happens is when they cut these up, there was some bone in that in the Boston butt or the pork shoulder, and they could have gotten some little shards of bone there on this meat. So you want to go ahead and you want to cut it up. Let me get this where you can see it. And you want to wash it off really good and make sure that you don't have any bone fragments or anything like that in the meat. Now I've got all the meat in there. I'm gonna go ahead and get my mixture ready to put right on the over the pork. Okay, and since I like it kind of spicy, I've decided to add a couple more things. First off, a little bit of garlic. I've got probably about tablespoon of garlic, maybe a little bit more. I'm going to add that to the mixture. And I've got some of this sriracha. This is just a chili sauce. I put this on everything, but this will be really good. Give it a little bit of kick to it. I put about a tablespoon of that in there. Go ahead and stir this up really good. So I'm just go ahead and pour this over this pork. Okay, we'll just get that in there. And you've got, some of this pineapple is going to be on top too. And just get it to where it's just right there on the top layer of that pork, and it's going to give it a really, really good flavor. Good little spicy flavor to that pork. And I'm going to let that marinate overnight. In the morning, I'm going to come in here. I'm going to take it out of the refrigerator. Probably it depends on what time I want to start. I either do it for on high for 6 hours or on low for 8 hours. So I'll let you know what I end up turning on in the morning. But we'll get this going in the morning, and we'll get started on our collard greens and our cornbread later on tomorrow afternoon. Alright, how y'all doing? Here's the next day. We've had this crock pot going all day. I put these country style ribs on about 7:45 this morning, set on low. Now it's about 5:30. So I'll show you what we got here around the pot. I went ahead and just cut off a minute ago. You'll see they've got real tender. Just fall apart tender here. It's not like, you know, I'm glad they're holding up there a little bit so you can serve them. They won't be like pulled pork. See, that one just broke in half. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to take these pork ribs out. I'm going to put them in a little bowl, put a little bit of this juice in there. I'm going to strain the rest of this juice and I'm going to put it in a little saucepan. I'm going to simmer it on the stove and let that reduce for a minute while we get started on these greens. Okay, first thing you want to do with your collard greens, you want to fill a clean sink tub full of cold water. We're going to unwrap these and we're going to let them sit in this whole tub of water, and that way any kind of dirt or bugs or anything like that on them, it's going to fall to the bottom. And you can go ahead and undo them out of these bands. Get a knife or something, there we go. And just kind of spread the leaves out as much as you can. That'll be enough water, and just kind of agitate them a little bit. This is one of the really important part here is you know, to make sure you get all this dirt and stuff out of here. And what we're going to do in a minute, next step, is we're going to get rid of this big old stem here, and we're just going to really kind of take these leaves. We don't want a lot of this stem on there. But for right now, we're going to go ahead and let them sit in that water for a few minutes and get some of that dirt off of them. Another instruction I think I left out earlier with this juice from the cooking the pork ribs, I'm going to go ahead and put it in this measuring cup here and let it settle out because I want to defat it before I start reducing it. Okay, and here's how you do these collard greens. What you want to do is first off cut this big piece of stem off right here at the end, and then if you can take your scissors or your knife and cut up a little bit to where the stem's still thick. Might want to take that off as well too. I don't like a lot of stem at all, but then you end up with just pretty much the leaf. I like to leave it just like that. Alright, now I decide what I'm going to season the greens with. Normally ham hocks would be a good choice, but you got to boil them for several hours in the water. That's like the end of a ham. I'm going to use this this salt pork here. Basically what it is like a fatty bacon. This is probably about a 12-ounce hunk here. So I'm going to cut a couple slices off of it, and I'm going to put it in my pot here, which I just have a bowl of pot here, just like this, and I'm going to simmer that over here on the stove. Okay, now I have my pot heated on the stove to about a medium-high heat. We've got some of this hot chopped up in pieces, not the hot, the salt pork. Like I said, it's just like a really thick bacon. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put it off in the pot, and I'm just going to treat it just like I would, just stir it around like I'm making bacon bits or something. And we'll just sit here and cook this pretty much, not till it's crispy, but just get a lot of that, the fat and everything out of it, and just cook it down a little bit. Let's cook it for like 2 or 3 minutes, just keep it moving around the pan though. Because you want to go ahead and get some of that juice, some of that fat all out of it. Okay, you can see how I've got these salt pork all browned down, looks like a nice bacon color. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and turn my heat off, and I'm going to transfer these to another pan. I've got a smaller pot here, just to hold them for a moment. Go ahead and transfer them over. Try not to spill any, and the grease too, that's fine, just get everything in there. Okay, now next step, I'll set that pot off the heat. I'm going to let that pot cool for a minute. Let this pork cool for a minute, and we'll come right back to it. Okay, now I've taken those greens, I've drained that area of the sink, and I put my greens in a strainer. Now I've got this pot that I've let cool. I'm going to go ahead and fill it about halfway up with some cool water. But what I can do in the meantime, I can go ahead and start taking these greens, and see I pulled all the stem out I could and ripping them into pieces about like that, you know, just getting them so it won't be such really big leaves when I go to cook them. Okay, now I got this pot almost halfway filled with water. Once I didn't wash it out though, I left some of that grease in the bottom. Let it cool off, and we'll go ahead and pour this bacon, or this salt pork, and the rest of this juice back in here. Okay, and I turn the heat up to high because I want to bring that to a boil now. You got that? I also we'll add a little bit of chicken bouillon, or I use this better than bouillon stuff, just to give a little bit of flavor. I'll add a good tablespoon or so of it. So this is going to be the water that we actually boil the greens in. This is going to give the greens a lot of flavor. So what we'll do, get all that in there, go ahead and bring this to a boil, and put those torn up greens in there, and they're going to get a lot of flavor. Okay, so what we've done is I put that salt pork back in the water. I put the bouillon, the chicken bouillon there, and I'm letting it boil. I'm going to let this water boil down about maybe half of what it is now, and then I'm going to add the turnip greens. Okay, now that our liquid is reduced to about half, the reason we did that to go ahead and cook a lot more of that flavor out of that pork, and we didn't need that much water in there. I'm going to go ahead and take my collard greens that I have cut up and dried. I'll add those to the liquid. Okay. Put those in, and don't worry if it looks like it wouldn't be enough leaves, it can wilt down a lot. We could even have less liquid in there if we want to. So give that a stir just a little bit, just kind of poke those down in there. Now I'm going to go ahead and turn this down. It doesn't have to be boiling. I'm turn it down to about medium, and I'm going to cover it. So get it covered. Go ahead and cover that, and we're just going to set that aside. I'm going to let it simmer. I'm going to check it in about 30 minutes. Okay, now we're going to go ahead while we got the collard green simmering. We're going to start on the cornbread. First thing you need to do is oil your skillet. You got a cast iron skillet. That's the only way to do it. I'm going to put about 2 tablespoons of oil in there. Use vegetable oil. This Wesson vegetable oil works real good. I'm going to spread it all around the skillet. You got to spread it on the sides, everywhere else. I use this little brush, but you can use a paper towel. You can another thing you can use besides this vegetable oil, if you want to, you can use Crisco. Some people put the Crisco around in here. But just get it all over on the sides, all over every area inside the cast iron skillet. If you have any excess, you can just you don't want too much excess in there. Kind of dump that off. Maybe leave a little bit. Leave about like that. Now you're going to preheat this skillet with your oven, or preheat your oven with the skillet. So put the skillet in the oven. Turn the oven to 450. Now I'm going to go ahead and start preheating that oven. And meanwhile, we'll go ahead and get the other ingredients together. Alright, now we're going to go ahead and get started with this cornbread mix. We have first want to mix our wet ingredients. I've got 2 large eggs. Put those on the mixer. I've got a cup of buttermilk. You don't have to use buttermilk, you use regular milk, but I think it turns out a lot better with buttermilk. I've got a 1/4 cup of vegetable oil. I've got some jalapeno peppers that I cut up. You don't have to put these in. I like about a tablespoon or so just minced jalapeno peppers. Alright. So we go ahead and I'm going to mix this just for a second. Lock this down. Let that just blend it up. Okay. Let's see if I can get you where you can see a little bit better what's going on here. Alright. Next, go ahead and shut this down. Open it back up. Go with our dry ingredients. I've got this is some cornmeal mix. I've got about 1 1/4 cups of this cornmeal mix here. And just some cup of regular flour. Not self-rising, but all-purpose flour. So if I can get all this in here with this whipping thing away. Alright, got that. And then I've got, this is a tablespoon. This tablespoon I've got about 1/2 tablespoon of sugar, 1/2 tablespoon of Slap Your Mama. Again, those are both optional. Go ahead and whip this around a little bit. Lock it in place. Just start low. You don't want to sling this stuff everywhere. You might even get your little spatula or something, just kind of check it there on the sides. And if it, I'll show you the consistency here in a second. If it doesn't get to the right consistency, you can always add a little bit more milk. Let me check it here real quick. I'll bring you over here and let you check this out. See what it's looking like. This, crashed the tripod. See how it's looking about like that? That's pretty good. It might be a little bit thinner. I'm gonna push this stuff down off the sides here just a little bit. Go ahead and knock that off and start this motor up again. Lock it in place. Start out in low. See, it's looking pretty good, but I think I may add another half a cup of milk to it, just to be sure. Okay. I added another half cup milk, or about a half cup. I just poured a little bit in there. And you see how it is now? Now it's running. It's a little thicker than a pancake batter, and that's how I want it. So I'm going to let this set aside here until my oven gets preheated to 450, and we're going to go ahead and pour it in the pan. Okay, now that this pan is screaming hot, I'm in the oven on 450. The oven's preheated. I'm going to go ahead and put my dough, my batter, down the pan. Okay, like I said, that pan was well oiled, so that's a big part of this. To make sure that the pan has plenty of vegetable oil and stuff spread around it. Get it all out of there. Okay. And it may look like it's not, quite enough to fill the pan up, but you got to remember it's going to rise. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and push it around in there, just like that. Get it all in there even. Now this particular pan has a little divider thing like this. That way you don't have to cut pieces. But if you use it, you're going to make sure you spray it good with cooking spray. It'll really stick to it. Just make a big old mess. Alright. Put this down in there. Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and go back in the oven for 20 minutes with this, and then we're going to check on it. Okay, while we wait for that cornbread and those greens to cook, remember we got our country style ribs. We've got another bowl, I lined it with foil. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put these ribs down in it. And we've been letting them soak a little bit in that juice that they cooked in. But now we're about to put the final touch on them. This is really going to make them good. Line up out this and keep them from falling apart. That's about it. Okay, what we're going to do is we're going to take that juice that I set aside earlier. Remember in the fridge to settle out, and then I put in this pan. I reduced it, so now it's almost like a consistency of a pancake syrup. But it's just really good stuff. It is all this just concentrated pork broth and all that marinade just boiled down to a really tasty sauce. I'm just going to drizzle that over this pork. Stuff is just going to be amazing. I already tasted it and it really was. And get it all out of there. And just wrap it back up in this foil. Let that just sit there and marinate and get ready for, in a little while we're ready to present this whole dish. Okay, the cornbread been in there about 20 minutes and I just got it out and it's nice golden brown. So I'm going to set it over here on a pot holder on the counter and let it hang out for a little bit while everything else gets done. Alright, I checked the collard greens, they're all good. I'm going to get me a piece of this cornbread up out of here. Check that nice golden brown crust. Give me some butter on that cornbread. See there, just let it melt on that cornbread. That's going to be some good stuff. Get over here and get us some of these collard greens and this pork. See how these greens are doing. They're doing good. Go ahead and cut them off. And oh yeah, perfect consistency that you want. Okay, just let that drain just a second. Get you some side of greens there. Let's get over here and see how this pork's doing. Let's move this pan here a little bit. Grab this pork. Let me reposition here. Alright, we'll open this pork up here. And then, oh, look at all this good gravy down in there. Try to find something to grab it with. I guess I can use this fork here. And it's just perfect, just falling apart tender little pieces of these country style ribs. And they're just soaking in that juice that I was telling you about earlier. I'll get you a close up of it here in just a second. We'll get some of this pork out of here. I mean, it's just a perfect southern country meal. And it's one of those things that took a little while to cook. You know, the pork cooked all day. The greens, they had to simmer for an hour or two. The cornbread don't take that long. But it's all so worth it when you get it together and you get it ready to go. Anyway, I'll show it to you. This is a perfect southern country meal. We got a pork drenched in that reduction sauce. We got a cornbread with a butter here. And we got turnip greens or collard greens. Homemade, real good southern cooking.